Let's talk about Google's latest earnings call. I want to focus not on so much the earnings, but really on what we can learn about the future of search and the future of AI at Google. I hear a ton of people who are saying Google is falling behind, and in some respects, that's actually true, but I don't think it's anything to worry about if you're Google. We're going to talk about Google's revenues are up 24% year over year. They are doing well, but everybody's talking about how this is the first time since Google went public that they're actually cash flow negative. And this is a big deal. Again, I actually think it's an exciting thing for Google and not something that Google needs to worry about. So walk with me through this episode. I'm going to share some concerns over search and what's happening. There's one area where Google's revenue is down, and this is significant. But we're also going to talk about where the opportunities are. I think that there are plenty of things on the horizon that those who pay attention to are going to have advantages as a result of knowing these things. The day before the earnings call, Google announced some new models, and I know a lot of people were really disappointed at this because we've been waiting for Gemini 3.5 Pro. At Google I/O in May, they told us that within the next month, they would be releasing 3.5 Pro, and now as I'm recording this, it's late July, and we still do not have this Pro model. Google told us that that model is in preview. It's being tested right now. I don't know who tests it, but it is being tested, and it will come out, but they are working on what they called their most ambitious run yet, Gemini 4. And this is really significant because it looks like Google is falling behind in terms of what they call frontier models. What Google announced this week were these new Flash models. And I don't think that they're that bad, actually. And in fact, I'm really, really impressed with Gemini 3.6 Flash. I've used it in Anti-Gravity for a number of things so far, and boy, is it fast, and it's really, really good. So these models that Google announced are 3.6 Flash. The Flash models tend to be faster models, but they're often not quite as good as the Pro level models. And then there's 3.5 Flash Lite. 3.5 Flash Lite was confirmed by Robbie Stein from Google to be the model that now is in charge of is the wrong word, the model that's used in search for AI overviews and AI mode. So Robbie Stein said, 3.5 Flash Lite in search is launched today. So as you're watching this, this is launched. And Glenn Gabe asked, is this for AI overviews and AI mode in search? Rajan Patel replied that yes, it will be one of the models that search queries get routed to, depending on the question. And I think this last bit that he said is the most important thing. He's excited because they're seeing it's especially good at understanding user intent for conversational questions. This is important when it comes to search because it means, unfortunately, for a lot of website owners, that AI overviews will get better at understanding what a searcher is looking for and how to provide them with the answer. This means probably less visits to websites. I think the biggest announcement out of the new models that they announced is actually 3.5 Flash Cyber in something that Google calls CodeMender. These CodeMender type things are likely going to be the way that software works in the future. Let me see if I can explain my understanding of what CodeMender is. Essentially, it helps find vulnerabilities in code, and it is always on. And so it will find vulnerabilities, and also it will patch them kind of on the fly. This is likely what's going to need to happen as software develops, as people get a hold of these more powerful models. You likely, if you're watching this, have heard the saga of Claude's Anthropic model called Fable. That Fable was removed by the U.S. government. The U.S. government required them to shut it down because of safety concerns. And then OpenAI came out with a model that was very powerful as well, and they had all of these security concerns. We just heard this week that this model broke out of a sandbox during testing and stole some answers to a benchmark that it was trying to do well on from Hugging Face. These models are starting to do things that are a little bit concerning. Here's my theory about Google's Flash models. I actually think that there's a good chance that Gemini 3.5 Pro, which we haven't seen yet, and then potentially Gemini 4 are as good or almost as good or maybe even better than Fable or GPT 5.6. And if that's true, now it might not be. It might be that they're not as good and that's why they need to do the Gemini 4 run. But if they are as good, what will happen? The government can't shut Google down. They can't make it so Google can't use their models. They need to make them safe from the beginning. And this is where I think that this cyber model in CodeMender will become standard so that it can scan for, it can protect people essentially from the negative things that can happen as AI gets better and better. So this is my theory that Google needs to, right now, CodeMender is only available if you're using Gemini Enterprise, and there is another plan as well, but you basically, I think there's Google Threat Assessment is what they call it. The average person, you and I, cannot use CodeMender, but it will come. And eventually, I think that every piece of software on the web will be protected by some type of a system like this. Now, 3.6 Flash is really, really good. I was using Anti-Gravity. A lot of people, most of the people in my community are really obsessed with Claude, and that's okay. Claude is really, really good, and I think that Anthropic is doing great things. I also think that ChatGPT Codex is really good as well, and if you're using that, then go for it. For me personally, I find that Anti-Gravity is the best thing. I have tried things where I've run it. I pay for all of Fable and Sol and Anti-Gravity, and I've had a few things where I've run a prompt in all three, and I consistently come back to Anti-Gravity. So today I was asking about, if you've watched some of my videos recently, I've been talking about OKF, the open knowledge format. And so I was conversing with Anti-Gravity, with Gemini 3.5 or 3.6 Flash in Anti-Gravity about the idea of using OKF with Google Analytics. I'm going to share more on this soon because it's very, very exciting. And so I had a big, long conversation, and then I said, can you make a website that defines all of the things we've described in our conversation so that I can share it with my community? And it took, I believe it was 12 seconds for Anti-Gravity to make this website. And then I asked, well, how do I share it? And within 42 seconds, it had connected to my GitHub, made a GitHub page, and provided me with a URL. And this website is really, really good. Again, I'll share more on that soon. My point here, and I know we're supposed to be talking about Google's earnings call, they talked about the Flash models in the earnings call. Sundar Pichai said that Gemini Flash hits the sweet spot of performance and cost. And here's what I think. So maybe I'm wrong. Maybe the new models coming are not going to be as good as Fable and as GPT 5.6. And this might be okay. So if I can do almost anything that I want, the examples that I see of people producing things with Fable often are wild, outlandish things like 3D models of crazy simulations. That's really cool. And Gemini doesn't do as good a job there. But everything that I try to do in Anti-Gravity, I can do well, I can do extremely fast, and it is way cheaper. I'm on the Ultra plan, so I'm paying a significant amount for Google AI, but I can code all day long. I can converse literally like 8 to 12 hours a day with Anti-Gravity. Maybe that's not that healthy, but some days that's how it is, and not run out of tokens to use. And I know that a lot of you who are using Claude, that's like one of the biggest things. And now Fable, they've cut down the amount of usage that you get as well. So I think that Google's plan is not necessarily to be the best at coding. I mean, I think they'd like to be, and I think that they're going to improve. But I think that if they can be really good, really fast, really reliable, and then Anti-Gravity is slowly starting to be integrated into search, that this is going to be really good for the general public who is using these. They shared in the earnings call that Anti-Gravity has 2.4 million active weekly users. I'm one of them. And if you are wanting to try it, just download Anti-Gravity and start talking to the agent. I'm telling you, you can get a whole lot done. It's completely free to download it and to get started with it. I don't work work for Google, by the way. I got the shirt at Google I/O. I probably should introduce myself. I picked up a few new subscribers with my last couple of videos. My name is Marie Haynes, and I used to be a veterinarian. And and in 2008, I started being really interested in understanding how Google works. By 2012, it became a full-time job for me, and I have been honored and privileged to be able to speak on Google algorithms, on Google updates, and more recently on Google's AI systems. As everything that they publish, everything that I can learn, I am avidly learning and trying to share. I have a very small handful of clients. My goal really is to just understand AI, as I believe it's a technology that will radically change how humanity, how we live. And I think for the better, although my next video, I'm going to be talking a little bit about AGI, a lot about AGI and artificial superintelligence, which does have some areas for concern for certain. So let's actually talk about what they said in the earnings call in regards to search. Google said that they are now showing AI overviews on more commercial queries. I have seen this with my clients, and I think I haven't checked since we've got 3.5 Flash Lite behind some of the AI overviews. Now, maybe they're doing more, but I noticed with the last core update that we had that my clients, even clients in medical areas that have medical products, are showing there's more AI overviews for their products. And so this is different because it's really difficult to know how to get in there. I have lots of theories. If you're in my community, you've seen a lot of our tests that we've been doing on being shown in AI overviews. And a lot of it just comes down to being the best resource for people to come to or the best known for that topic. I think that a lot of the advice that we see on manipulating our way in there is potentially dangerous. It can get you there, and then it can train the systems over time, if users don't agree, to think of you less. And so our process is to just do the best thing for users, and often that gets us into more and more AI overviews. People are also starting to see more ads in AI mode. Brody Clark has been publishing some really good things showing that there are more and more ads in AI mode, and ads in AI mode are making Google a significant amount of money. I don't think they shared exactly how much money come from ads in AI mode, but they did share about ads from the display network, which is really fascinating. So we'll get to that in just a minute. They told us that they can show more ads because Gemini is making it so that they're better able to understand long queries. And in the past, somebody might ask a really long query and Google wouldn't know what ads to show them, but now they have a better understanding so they can show more ads. So Google is showing more ads within search, which means that they're making more money from ads in the search results. They talked in the earnings call again about this phrase that search is becoming agentic. Sundar Pichai, the CEO of Google, has said this multiple times now. In a previous interview, he said that search is becoming more of an agent manager. And instead of being a place where people go for information, it's becoming a place where people go to get stuff done. This is not good if you are making a living out of providing people with information. This is the way that the web is going. I'm not saying that I'm happy with this. I think some people have misunderstood me. I'm excited about what Google's doing, but I am grieved over the number of businesses that are struggling because they were previously thriving on providing the world with information that now Google's AI answers provide. Earlier this week, Google published this blog post saying that we're now going to be able to connect apps in search. Now, I'm wondering, I've been talking about WebMCP and how most businesses likely will have WebMCP enabled tools. I'm almost wondering now if businesses will create apps. Businesses already create apps, but I think we may be encouraged to create apps that can be used from within AI mode. So right now, Google announced a few of them. Here's one where they give this example of Instacart, where somebody is asking in AI mode, can you get me the things that are needed for this barbecue? And then AI mode connects with the Instacart app and goes and finds the products. I don't know how it knows which store to go to. It might use personal intelligence for that, so it will know where you've bought things from before. And not only does it go to Instacart, it will find the items that you need, put it in your cart, and eventually you can check out as well. I think right now it will just save your checkout and then you have to manually go do it. But we will get to the point where we can just say to our agents, I want to make this thing, go get me the ingredients, and then they'll be delivered to our house. They also shared about connecting with Canva and with AI or with YouTube Music as well. And so I think that there will be more and more connected apps. This is an area that I'm keeping my eye on. And I think that every website, you need to be offering people the ability to get something done. This is a good prompt that you can use in Gemini or in whatever language model you like to use. Ask it to tell you more about WebMCP and about people using apps through AI mode, and to give you 20 ideas of what you could do with your website that would make it not just a source of information, but to allow people to do things with it, or better yet, to allow people's agents to do things with it, because I think that that's where the value is going to be. They also talked a couple of times in the earnings call about buy with Google Pay. They talked about this mostly in the context of YouTube. Twice they said that YouTube, the fastest growing screen for YouTube was the living room, that people are watching YouTube in their living rooms on their TV. And they said that it will be really easy for 2 clicks for us to be able to buy things directly from YouTube. I don't know if this is specifically about ads. I do think that it won't be long before we can say, oh, I have this product and just tap this button and you've bought it. And so buy with Google Pay is going to be very interesting. It will eventually be something, again, that we can send agents out, whether our agent is AI mode, whether it's Claude or ChatGPT or whatever, and then tell it to go buy things for us. If you're not familiar with Google's Agent Payments Protocol, AP2, I would encourage you to read about that. It's basically the standard for safe transactions for agents, and there's all sorts of security layers in it as well. So we are heading towards this time where agents can buy things. I've done a couple of videos on the Universal Commerce Protocol. This is coming. I still have not seen any of my clients or their competitors get access to UCP. I've only seen it on Wayfair and I think Walmart, but it is coming and people will soon be able to buy things directly from the search results. I want to talk about the one area in the earnings call where they talked about Google actually not doing so well. There was a 1% drop in revenue from the Google network. The Google network, so this is in millions, so this is $7.3 billion in the second quarter of 2025, and 7.35, and then they had 7.3 billion, just slightly less in 2026. The Google network is the display network. This is AdSense, is people showing ads on their websites. And I had one of my community members say, well, I'm surprised that's not lower actually with the amount of website traffic that people who are showing display ads are saying there's a lot less traffic. And I think the Google network also includes YouTube. So YouTube, they're probably seeing more ads and websites less ads. I don't know that for certain. But so 1% year over year loss, that is kind of interesting. And I think it shows where things are headed in terms of Google making money from ad revenue on other people's websites. When I first started talking about Google making money from AI a few years ago, a lot of people said, no, they would never do that because their biggest revenue driver is advertising. Well, you can see that Google Search and other, I'm not sure what other counts for, they made $54 billion in this quarter last year, and 63 billion. They're making a lot of money from search. This is probably ads in AI mode, ads in AI overviews, ads in the search results, Google keeping people in the search results. But I want to show something where this actually really blew my mind. So we know that Google network revenue is down 1%, but look at this. Google Cloud is up 13 billion this quarter last year to 24 billion. That's an 87% increase. Google Cloud is AI. It's people purchasing Google's AI, whether it's their models, their TPU chip use, or Gemini Enterprise, things like that. I want to tell you that this shouldn't be a surprise. If you do a search, let's actually do this. if you do a search on Google for search engines, you actually do not see google.com on there. Brave search is there. Sometimes when I do this, I see, yeah, there's Bing, DuckDuckGo. You might see blog posts from Google, but you don't see google.com on there. And it's been that way ever since I started studying Google. Google is not primarily a search engine. I believe their goal from the beginning, when we know their mission is to organize the world's information, which is what we've been doing. If you're publishing information for the web, you are helping Google organize the world's information. But there's a second part to that mission statement, and that is to make it useful and accessible to all. To make it useful. And this is the phase that we're entering in right now in terms of agentic search. So this is not great news for content creators, but I think that we need to skate to where the puck is going. That's a Canadian reference. All Americans really like it when I say about. I don't know what's so funny about that. So content creators need to figure out what we can be doing. I mean, a lot of people are still making money from Google search visitors, and Google search is not going to go away. But for a lot of types of websites, we need to look to something different. I personally think that when glasses come out, it's going to open up all sorts of opportunities. I just did a site review recently for a video game review site. And boy, can I think of all of the possibilities of apps that you could make that help coach you as you go through a video game. As you're wearing glasses. Google's AI glasses, although they're not calling them AI glasses, they're called intelligent eyewear, are coming out this fall. Although who knows? I mean, they told us 3.5 Pro would be here by now. It wouldn't surprise me if they get delayed. They have a partnership with Warby Parker and with Gentle Monster. And you can see that these glasses actually look like, they don't look like AI glasses. They look pretty nice. And I think this is going to open up a wild amount of opportunity for Google. Right now, we are learning, AI is learning from the text that is on the internet. This is only such a tiny part of the world. And Google Gemini they really make a point of saying how it is multimodal from the ground up. And that means that it understands images, it understands video, it understands audio. Once we start giving Google training data via our glasses, it is going to give them a whole new world of understanding in the world. And I think this will give Google a huge advantage over the other AI companies, but I could be wrong on that. So I would say if you're a content creator, look at intelligent eyewear, look at WebMCP, and look at the types of tools that agents will be using. Another thing to research is the agentic resource discovery specification. This is how agents will find other agents to do things with. And it is still developing. There is so much for us to know. It's very much like when the internet first came out. You know, people who could learn how to create websites all of a sudden had this whole new revenue stream. I do think many things will be opening up. And I think that businesses will need people who understand agents. My last couple of videos were about the open knowledge format, and I have seen several of my community members that are already selling the ability to create a knowledge base for businesses and make it agent accessible. This is something that there's going to be a lot of opportunity for. And I think that a lot of people who currently make content and get revenue from search will find abilities to make revenue via OKF in some way. Still developing. I can't promise you things, but those are the areas where I would focus. Let's talk about the elephant in the room when we're talking about the earnings call. I had a number of people comment on X under my post about my notes on Google's earnings that Google was cash flow negative for the first time since they went public. So I think that's like 20 years. This is a really big deal. And let me see if I can explain why. They said that it's going to get worse, that they're going to be spending more money, that they spent an insane amount of money on building out the AI infrastructure. And the reason why Google has done this is that there is insane demand for their AI services. Google told this very interesting stat that out of the Fortune 100, 90%, so 90 businesses, enterprises, are using Gemini Enterprise. Gemini Enterprise is going to be the standard, I believe, for what most businesses will use. I do see a lot of people setting up business solutions with Anthropic, with OpenAI. I think that those are valid as well, but I think the average person, the average business probably is going to use Google's products, and they will get better and better and easier to use as the tech develops. So looking at Google's earnings call, they told us that they spent nearly $6 billion more on physical assets than they earned in the last 3 months. 60% of that money has gone towards servers. So basically AI chips, their tensor processing units, and 40% has gone into the data centers that house them. And they are building for the future. And this is why I'm excited. I think, either it's a huge gamble and we are going to see a major crash, or it is a sign of what's coming. I mean, the billions and billions of dollars that are going into building out AI infrastructure are mind-shattering, and yet most businesses are not seeing a return on that just yet. I saw an article in the New York Times today that showed they tried to get an AI agent to accomplish tasks using computer use, which, by the way, Gemini 3.6 Flash, it does beat benchmarks for most, I think, everybody else on computer use, like on the AI using your computer as if it was a person. And in this New York Times article, the agent failed on pretty much everything. And here we are saying that Google's building this thing that every business is going to rely on, and yet it fails. It will continue to get better and better. I do truly believe that. So Google currently has more demand than they can meet in terms of buying AI. One of the questions that was asked of them was, how do they allocate their compute? Because they only have so much to use themselves, to sell. They talked about the different customers that they have, and one of their priorities is to make sure that the customers have the amount of compute they need. It's very interesting to see that some of their customers include Meta and Anthropic. A lot of people are buying compute power from Google, and so Google wants to provide them with that. Part of me is like, why would Google provide competitors with compute when they are all going towards the same goal? And this is what I think we need to really focus on, and it's going to be the focus of my next video. Sundar Pichai said that the baseline for how the company determines where to allocate compute is determined by what is required to continue AGI development at Google. AGI, Artificial General Intelligence, is intelligence that is as smart as any human at any cognitive task. We are not there now. AI right now is what they call, it has jagged intelligence, meaning that in some areas it's way more intelligent than me. I don't know if you saw that an Anthropic employee asked Fable to solve or to disprove what's called the Jacobian conjecture. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it's an 87-year-old math problem that mathematicians have been trying to solve or to disprove for quite some time. And Fable was able to come up with a proof, or I guess an anti-proof, that showed that this conjecture was false. And this was something that, no human has been able to do, and yet a language model came up with it. Language models are really smart in some areas, but in other areas, they're really bad. It looks like Google's fixed this now, but I saw somebody Googled how many days of the week have the word poop in them, and Gemini told the user that Wednesday poop was the only one. Although I saw another version that said there was Saturday. I'm just giving you goofy examples right now, but we clearly know that AI is not smarter than every human at every task. Actually, AGI is AI that's as smart as most humans, I believe. And then Google just published a paper, which again, I'm going to go through in my next video, called AGI to ASI. ASI is Artificial Superintelligence. And this is, if you imagine, if we have AGI as a computer that is as smart as most humans, if you put a collection of those computers together and they start recursively self-improving themselves, then we end up with a system that is way smarter than the entirety of humanity. And that has mind-blowing potential consequences. I personally think that it's going to be amazing for humanity, but I also think that there's a possibility that it won't be. So what can we say about Google's earnings call? I think that Google is doing well. I am not worried that they are not at the frontier level in terms of coding power. I think that they have enough power to do the majority of things that people want to do with coding. And I, again, would encourage you to give Anti-Gravity using Gemini a try. And I think that as far as search goes, we are going to continue to see more and more features appear in AI mode. I don't think AI mode will completely replace traditional search, but it probably will get more and more like it is now, that almost every question you ask, Google gives an AI answer, and then it gives you the opportunity to go to AI mode. We're going to see more and more like that. We're going to see agents in AI mode, and those agents are going to open up opportunities. So stay tuned. Get it? Stay tuned. Stay tuned. I'm going to keep my eye on these things for you. And if you're not already subscribed, I'm really enjoying making these videos lately. So stay tuned for my next video on AGI.